Fudayl ibn Iyad, one of our great spiritual masters, once he got into a conversation with a person and he asks him, how old are you? And the person says, I'm 60 years old. So Fudayl says, you have been journeying towards Allah for the last 60 years. Pretty soon you're going to reach your destination. Pretty soon you're going to die. Like the end is nigh. And the person, when he hears it, he says, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. So Fudayl says, do you know what that means? This phrase you just uttered? Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Ma tafsir. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى أهله وصحبه ومن والاه. My dear brothers and sisters in Islam, welcome to Sunnah Fix, our weekly dose of prophetic sunnah and spirituality. Today, inshallah, we're going to be continuing our study of hadith 281 of Al-Adab Al-Mufrad. And allow me to translate the hadith for you, where Abdullah ibn Zubayr radiyallahu anh says that ما رأيت امرأتين أجود من عائشة وأسماء رضي الله عنهما. I've never seen two ladies who are more generous than Aisha and Asma رضي الله عنهما. These were the two most generous souls I knew. وجودهما مختلف. He says, however, they were generous in their own ways. Then he goes on to say, as for Aisha, she would allow things to accumulate until they would become sizable, and then she would give them out in charity. As for Asma though, she would not save anything for tomorrow. She فَكَانَتْ لَا تُمْسِكُ شَيْئًا لِغَدٍ. She would not retain anything for tomorrow. And folks, this is the phrase, that last phrase that I just shared with you, that she would retain nothing for tomorrow. I want to focus on that because I don't know about you, but this phrase like floors me. This attitude that she had, to leave nothing for tomorrow. I mean, we live in the age of like 401ks and pensions and social security and umbrella coverage and college funds. And the idea of not saving anything for tomorrow is just so hard to relate. Especially for us Desis, man. We're like, we save everything. Of course we save money, but then we save shoes and clothes so they become hand-me-downs. And then it's embarrassing to say, we're the people who go to Taco Bell and then we save the sauces. You know, just in case, you know, there's a rainy day and you're eating Arab food and you need more of a kick. So, you know, it's like, we save everything. And then you hear Asma radiallahu anha, and she saves nothing for tomorrow. How's that even practical? Is that even actionable? Is that something for us? So I wanted to kind of understand her mindset today and her attitude, kind of where is this coming from? And after reading and a lot of reflecting, I feel like to understand her attitude, we need to introduce a concept that we have not yet discussed in Sunnah Fix. In Arabic, we call this concept طول الأمل. طول الأمل. Now, what in the world is that? And what does that mean? One of our scholars, Abu Ishaq al-Huwaini, is a contemporary scholar. He says, هو من أكبر شباك الشيطان. طول الأمل is one of the greatest traps of shaitan. In fact, some of the Salaf used to say, هو من جند الشيطان. طول الأمل is from the armies of shaitan. And you're wondering, what in the world is this? What is this concept, طول الأمل? So to appreciate it, let's start with the word amal. Amal, as some of you may know, if you know a little bit of Arabic language, we name our daughters Amal, right? Amal means hopes and aspirations. And in Arabic, you have another word for hope, which is called tamanni. Even in Urdu, we have this word, aapki kya tamanna hai? So, in Arabic you have tamanni and then you have amal. Scholars of Arabic, they say there's a subtle difference between the two. Tamanni is the word you use when you long for something that's not really feasible for you. When you're dreaming about something that's way out of your league. So that's like, you're looking at a Bugatti that's $3 million and you're like, yo, that's my dream car. Well, Habibi, it's going to remain that way. It's probably just going to be a dream. You see, that is what you call a tamanni, something that's outside of the realm of possibility. You know, I heard in Bel Air, California, there was a mansion, mega mansion on sale. It's called The One. The list price was $295 million. 22 rooms, 42 bathrooms, and the whole shebang. Now, if you think, I don't know, if you fantasize about the fact that maybe one day this could be mine, the odds of you getting that and to have that kind of money is obviously, very few people are going to crack that ceiling. So you guys get what tamanni means, something that is not very feasible. You can't see the causal pathway that will get you there. Amal, on the other hand, is something that is possible. achievable, feasible, with a little bit of effort. So that's the word amal for you. And now the other word in that phrase is tul. Tul means something that is lengthy, long-winded, drawn out. You put the two together, you get the phrase tulul amal, which essentially means long, drawn-out hopes and aspirations for this world. That's what tulul amal ultimately comes down to. Now, if you're anything like me, you're wondering, why is that a bad thing? I want to get to med school. I've been working hard for a few years. I want to save up, and I want to make a decent living. Is that bad to have long plans for your success in this world? And Ibn Hajar rahimahullah, he gives us a really nice answer. He says, look, without amal, without aspirations and hopes, we would not have a civilization. We wouldn't have an economy. We wouldn't be saving for the college funds of our kids. So we need amal for sure. What Islam criticizes is when someone has these long, complicated, multifaceted strat plans for the next 10, 20 years of their lives, and it has nothing to do with their hereafter at all. Like, it is completely divorced from any benefit to their hereafter gain. That's when it starts to become a problem. That it has no connection that you can see with how it's going to ultimately help them in the next life. So let me give you an example real quick so you can quickly appreciate what we're getting at. Imagine someone who tells you that, at the age of 30, I want to make my down payment for my house. And at the age of 50, I want to be financially independent and I want to be able to retire. And then I want to move to Florida and I want to get a beachfront property and I'm going to retire there on a golf course, or I'm going to travel the world. As you can see, they got a stacked up plan with lots of hopes and aspirations, but you don't see anything related to the hereafter at all. Seems all they care about is dunya. That's what they care about, dream about, obsess about. This plan, at least from the surface level, you have no idea how it has any manfa'a for the akhirah. Now, let me give you another example. Imagine someone who is trying to get into the Ivy League law school, and their plan is to graduate at the top of their class, and then they want to work hard, 80 hours a week, whatever they got to do, to become the youngest partner in the law firm. And at the age of 40, they want to start their own law firm, their own practice, so they can make lots of money. But in the back of their mind, their intention is, I want to have my own law firm just in case Muslims need civil liberties protection. In case there's another Muslim ban. To provide pro bono services to our Muslim brothers and sisters, I want my law firm to be there. That's how I'm going to serve the ummah. You see now the connection to the hereafter is emerging. The first person is criticized, the second person, not really. So that's the way you want to think about the concept of tulul amal. Now, if you understood all of this, real talk, my dear brothers and sisters, majority of the people in this world, they have lofty aspirations for dunya, and akhirah is really not on their radar. A lot of people, they're not really thinking about death and what lies after death. They're just worried about launching the next business. Closing that next deal and getting that promotion, and layers of hope upon hope. And our Prophet ﷺ gave us this brilliant analogy. So once our Prophet ﷺ, he's sitting with the companions and he draws a square or a rectangle, murabba'an. He draws a rectangle or a square, and then he draws a line in the middle of that square that goes beyond the square. And then he turns to his companions and he says, this square is a person's lifespan. And the line that goes through the square and beyond are his hopes and dreams and aspirations. Meaning, hopes are far greater than what one lifespan can actualize. But that's what human beings are. Our Prophet ﷺ told us, لا يزال قلب الكبير شابا في اثنتين حب الدنيا وطول الأمل. The Prophet ﷺ said, there are two things in which even the heart of an old person remains young. What is that, Ya Rasulullah? Love of this world and long-winded hopes, extended plans, and lofty aspirations and grand hopes. And my dear brothers and sisters, once you appreciate that, what I'd like to do now is explore a little bit with you what are some of the side effects of tulul amal. If you're not catching my drift yet, when people have these long extended plans for this world and they're putting all their eggs in the basket of this world, this is where you hear stories like someone who's in their 50s and they're obsessed with living a long life. They're obsessed with reversing their aging, so they'll take the plasma from their kid and inject it into their own bodies because somehow that's going to provide them with nutrients and reverse aging. Ajib things people do, Because dunya is all they got. يَعْلَمُونَ ظَاهِرًا مِنَ الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا. All they know is the surface level life of this world. وَهُمْ عَنِ الْآخِرَةِ هُمْ غَافِلُونَ. Hereafter is not even in the picture. Allow me to share with you some of the side effects of طُولُ الْأَمَل. The first side effect I'd like to share with you today is that when someone has a lot of طُولُ الْأَمَل, grand ambitions just for this world, completely disconnected and divorced from the hereafter, the first thing that occurs is that they are distracted from their mission in this life. Now, to put it simply, our mission in this world, my dear brothers and sisters, is to worship Allah, to serve the Creator, and to serve the creation. Imam Razi summarized it beautifully. عِبَادَةُ خَالِقْ وَرَحْمَةُ إِلَى الْخَلْقِ. That's basically the motto of our religion. Take care of God's rights, take care of people's rights. And we're supposed to serve Allah and serve the creation through thick and thin, through pain and pleasure. You and I are going to be tested. That's what this world is. Hereafter is a graduation party. So, if we understood that this life is an opportunity to maximize the gains in the hereafter, you're just trying to make sure how to have the best possible outcome there. The world is just a launching pad to get there. If that's your worldview, and that's what we are sent in this world for, then obviously, if you just have lofty aspirations connected to this world, then you are someone who's off track. You're someone who's climbing the ladder, and when you get to the top of the ladder, you realize it's leaning against a wrong wall the whole time. And that's a dangerous place to be in. Can I give you an example when it comes to this? Like, imagine as your boss, I send you on a business trip. And your goal on this business trip is to close a deal and to win a certain customer account. As you're headed off to that business trip, I hook you up with a swanky hotel. I provide a limo service. Like, I hook you up to make sure you have the best, most comfortable time possible. And you get there, you're enjoying the scenery and the sightseeing, and while you're there, you start looking into real estate. And you start lining up some properties you can invest in while you're there. And this is what's consuming a lot of your time, to a point the night before the presentation to the main customer, you sleep late, you forget to charge your laptop, and you forget to make copies, and you have a very poor presentation in front of that customer, and you lose the account. When you're going to come back to me, to the headquarters, when you return to me, you know what I'm going to do, right? I'm like, I gave you this, this, and this. I hooked you up. What did you do for me? Did you close the deal? You better have a good answer. Do you realize something akin to this will be the conversation you have with Allah? We have narrations where Allah will stand someone up and say, I did this for you and this for you. I gave you youth, I gave you wealth, I gave you knowledge. What did you do for me? Ya Allah, I was too busy at work for Jumu'ah. Too busy running liquor stores. Too busy binge watching Netflix to pray Isha. Like tulul amr, long drawn out hopes for this world and chasing the pleasures of this world. But then you got distracted from your ultimate mission. And this right here, my dear brothers and sisters, is what Salaf used to tell us. They used to say, طُولُ الْأَمَلْ يَصْرِفُ هِمَمَكُمْ إِلَى الدُّنْيا. One of the side effects of having these grand ambitions is that you end up channeling all your energy and attention to this world. And hereafter is not on your horizon. And the types of things you're going to do, the things you're going to produce, may help you here, but they're completely disconnected from there. And another side effect of that, my dear brothers and sisters, when people are not thinking about the hereafter and all they're worried about is this world, they end up cutting corners to get to the worldly end and the hedonic end that they had in mind. So immorality and ethical issues kind of also creep in. This is another thing to kind of keep in mind. That's why Fudayl ibn Iyad, one of our great spiritual masters, once he got into a conversation with a person and he asks him, how old are you? And the person says, I'm 60 years old. So Fudayl says something really powerful that's going to affect this person. He says, you have been journeying towards Allah for the last 60 years. Pretty soon you're going to reach your destination. What is he saying? Pretty soon you're going to die. Like the end is nigh. And the person, when he hears it, he says, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. So Fudayl says, do you know what that means? This phrase you just uttered? Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Ma tafsiruhu, he says. Translation, we belong to Allah and to Him is our return. Fudayl says, when a person knows that he's a servant of Allah and he's returning to Allah, then he should also know that when you get to Allah, you might be detained. And if you are detained, you will be interrogated. And if you're going to be interrogated, you better prepare for that audit and that interview. Get ready. You can't show up unprepared because you're so distracted executing the schemes and the strat plans of this world. You got to get ready for that meeting too. So the person, very affected by this, he says, Mal hila, what am I supposed to do? I'm 60 years old now. Fudayl says, Yasira. He's like, it's easy. And then he gives him a little bit of advice. He says, Tuhsin fi ma baqi, yughfaru laka ma mada. فَإِنَّكَ إِنْ أَسَأْتَ فِي مَا بَقِيَ أُخِذْتَ بِمَا مَضَى وَبِمَا بَقِيَ. Fudayl ibn Iyad says to him, whatever time that you have left, whatever lifespan you have left, do ihsan to Allah. Show excellence to Allah, and perchance Allah will overlook your past and forgive you for the khayr that you were able to do in the time that's remaining. But if you became distracted even now that you know the reality of the matter, you still remain distracted, then there's a chance that Allah will take you to task for the time that's left and your past actions. So, my dear brothers and sisters, that's the first side effect of tulul amal, and that is you become distracted from your real mission in this life. Allow me to move on to the second side effect. The second side effect of someone totally immersed in dunya and trying to ace their dunya game, they're trying to make this world as cozy and comfortable as possible. That's all they care about. That's all they lose sleep about. Our scholars, they say one of the side effects of that is your heart becomes hard. Why? Because a person who's driven, completely immersed in dunya, they're not thinking about death. And when they're not thinking about death, they're not thinking about their ultimate purpose. And when that occurs, your heart starts to become like a rock. Because you're barely reminded of the hereafter, you barely think about your end, and your heart never has the opportunity to become softened. And this is what Allah warns us in the Quran about, فَطَالَ عَلَيْهِمُ الْأَمَدْ فَقَسَتْ قُلُوبُهُم. Long time passed, their hopes became enormous and extended, and their hearts became hard. These are the people, my dear brothers and sisters, that when you're around them and you ever bring anything religious, they'll immediately shut you down. Be like, why you always got to bring up religious stuff, man? Why you always got to be so serious? Live a little. Let's have some fun. You know, we're not in the masjid. This is not Jum'ah today. These are the people, when you're in their company, they'll be like, oh, the Sheikh is here. The Imam is here. And they'll troll you like that. So this is one of the effects of someone who is someone who's drowning in the quicksand of this world. The last side effect that I'd like to share with you, which is subtle but profound. You guys, anyone who has tulul amal, which once again is lofty aspirations, pure raw dunya chasing, the third side effect I'd like to share with you is that this person, whether they realize it or not, whether they're conscious of this or not, they are under the assumption, and that is that they have lots of time to execute their plans. That they have plenty of time to execute all their plans and then some. And this allows them to rationalize delaying their tawbah, becoming religious, getting their life straight. And this is where you get people, especially young people. If you talk to young people, particularly those who are trying to launch a business and like they're into working out and they're trying to make a quick buck or whatever, you'll notice majority of their priorities, majority of things on their to-do list is all dunyavi related. Religion is not on the scene, they don't really have time to pray. If it's disconnected from the hereafter, this is where tulul amal as a disease of the heart kicks in, which Islam is kind of warning us about. Now, my dear brothers and sisters, when someone lives in that mindset, and they have these long, ambitious plans, and they're chasing the dunya, this is where eventually their time will be up, and shaitan will get the last laugh. And our religion warns us about that. One of the greatest grammarians of Islam, Sibawayh. This man is arguably the greatest grammarian our Islamic history has seen. He wrote a book in grammar called Al-Kitab. Literally, that's what they call this book, the book. They say 4 books have become perfected. One of them is Kitabu Sibawayh. Incredible scholar. He died young. They say in his mid-30s or mid-40s. On his deathbed, he composed some poetry. And I wanted to share this poetry with you because he's dying young. I'm sure he has big plans for life. And now on his deathbed, he says, يُؤَمِّلُ دُنْيَا لِتَبْقَى لَهُ فَمَاتَ الْمُؤَمِّلُ قَبْلَ الْأَمَلِ حَثِيثًا يَرْوِي أُصُولَ الْفَسِيلِ فَعَاشَ الْفَسِيلُ وَمَاتَ الرَّجُلُ. Translation, he says, a person has long, drawn out, complicated hopes for this world, hoping that this world will last, that this world will remain, and he'll get to enjoy the time in this world. But what ends up happening, فَمَاتَ الْمُؤَمِّلُ قَبْلَ الْأَمَلِ. Your hopes outlive you. You, the one generating the hopes, ends up passing away before the hopes. And then he gives an example, like a person who has a small palm tree and he's watering that plant and that palm tree. He says, usually what happens, فَعَاشَ الْفَسِيلِ, this palm tree will live a long life, will grow tall, live for years, and the person who used to water that plant will pass away first. He's like, our hopes are like that. We water them, we hustle after them, but the reality of the matter is we pass away before the hopes are actualized, just like that palm tree. And Imam Shafi'i said something really profound. He says, تَزَوَّدْ مِنَ التَّقْوَى فَإِنَّكَ لَا تَدْرِي إِذَا جُنَّ مِنَ اللَّيْلِ هَلْ تَعِيشُ إِلَى الْفَجْرِ. He's like, Imam Shafi'i says, take taqwa, grab hold of taqwa and cautiousness with this world, because you don't know when night comes, will you actually live till Fajr? And then he goes on to say, وَكَمْ مِنْ فَتَى أَمْسَى وَأَصْبَحَ ضَاحِكًا وَقَدْ نُسِجَتْ أَكْفَانُهُ وَهُوَ لَا يَدْرِي. And he's like, and how many are the young people who are laughing and trolling and joking, and their shrouds are being stitched and they don't even know? SubhanAllah. Their shrouds are literally being prepared and they have no idea. And then he goes on to say, and how many are the people who wake up in the palaces, but they will go to bed that very day at night in their graves? You just don't know. And you got these fancy, multi-tiered plans for your life and your financial plan and that plan and that plan. And if hereafter is not in the picture, shaitan got you. That's one of his tricks. And this is something you and I have to be deeply aware that when you are planning out your life and charting out your life, make sure you understand why you're here in this world to begin with. What is the mission? So you don't end up being distracted from the mission. I like to give the analogy of someone who ignores the hereafter for this world. You're like the guy who knocked out at the appetizer and you lost the meal. You got trapped in the foyer before the great hall. You lost the plot. Be careful. That's why Prophet ﷺ, once Abdullah bin Mas'ud said, he went to bed, ﷺ, and when he got up, his bedding was so coarse and rugged that the marks of that bedding were etched on his back, because he was sleeping on a straw mat. So you could see the marks of his rough bedding on his back. And the Sahaba, in some cases, teared up. They're like, Ya Rasulullah, if we can only get you a more comfortable bed. And the Prophet ﷺ says, Ma li walid dunya. What do I got to do with this world? Then he goes on to give an example. He says, my example, when it comes to this world, is like an example of a rider that takes shade under a tree for a brief period of time, and then he leaves that shade and goes on with towards his destination. No long-winded hopes, no crazy plans. He understands his mission. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Once Hasan al-Basri was sitting in a gathering like I am right now. There were young people and old people. He looked at the old people first, and he tells them, Ya ma'shara shuyukh, oh you, the shuyukh in the audience. He says, when a crop becomes mature, what happens next? When the crop becomes mature and ripe, what happens next? They said, hasad, it's plucked for harvest. What is he telling them? You have become mature, 60, 70 years old. The next step is, you're about to be plucked from this world. Gently telling them what's about to come next. And then he looks at the young people who may think they're like, oh, well, I got time. He says, Ya ma'ashar al-shabab. He says, Inna az-zar'a qad tudrikuhu al-'ahatu qabla an yablagh. He's like, oh, young people, realize that sometimes crop has not reached maturity, but it can be afflicted by a disease which leaves a farmer no option but to pluck it. There's no guarantee when the plug is pulled. So, my dear brothers and sisters, I hope you understand now why Asma was not saving for tomorrow. Because she's like, tomorrow's not guaranteed. I'm not entitled to live till the morning if I reach the evening. I don't even know what tomorrow holds. So I might as well maximize the good deeds now. It's not that she doesn't care about the future and she's neglectful. No. She's living under the fear that I may not have long to live. I don't know I'm not guaranteed the next second, let alone the next day or the next month. So she's like, let me hustle to do good, give the charity out now, let me not leave it lying around. So that's why she would do what she did, because she did not want to fall in the trap of tulul amal. I end my khatira today with a beautiful quote of Ali radiallahu anh, who used to say, irtahalat ad-dunya mudbira. He's like, oh my people, dunya is receding and akhirah is coming. And then he used to say, لِكُلِّ وَاحِدَةٍ مِّنْهُمَا بَنُونَ. For each are children. Dunya has children, akhirah has children. What does he mean by this? He's trying to capture the fact that, children are very attached to their parents, generally. Very connected with their parents. So he's trying to invoke that metaphor. He's like, there are people who are obsessed and attached to this world, and there are people who are obsessed and attached to the hereafter. And then he goes on to say, وَلَا تَكُونُوا مِنْ أَبْنَاءِ الدُّنْيَا. So don't be from the children of this world, be from the children of the hereafter, because today is a day of action and no accountability. Tomorrow is a time of accountability and no action. So take advantage of that. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us wise and to give us perspective on life. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun. Wa salamun ala al-mursaleen walhamdulillah.